zalayisha imoto, zalayisha ngunathi lowo bhitanisa ikomityi, bhitanisa ikomityi unathi sithi ke Nomvula. Andiyam ndedwa ke baphulaphula njengoba nibona. Time now is 40 minutes after 7. Close ngathi Lhoza, wamaMfene sithalela imayiki yakho ntombi. Please, ize kuwe. Good morning, baphulaphuli, and welcome to a social crossover ngalo lwesine wanamhlanje, 11th of the 11th, 2021. She's here. Bongwe kazi, balintoni, ngumambongwe, abantu abathiwa ngeziduko. Mambongwe, imake usemayikhini erongo ke. Ndiyakuva ke ngoku. Unkunjani? Kutheni nasike ndankungu xa kufika umambongwe? Baphulaphula ndibona ngabe ugqolarha xa kufika umambongwe. Hey, masidlule. Mambongwe uthendo bafuna ungigqumelela ndasike ndafika. Niyandibona nabaphulaphula bengekho njeni.
Soze. Noba kwenzeka ntoni? Soze.
Ninjongile. Hayi sengamthuqwasi ngathi nazikwela uthuthu. But anyway, unfair labor practice. Mambongwe bulisa abaphulaphuli bekhe radio.
Molweni, silapha again today.
Yes, sizawuncokola ke naye sive into yobana uthi ithini na ke umcimbi wayo. Well, unfair labor practice. Sekutheni sesifika ku unfair, sifike njani mhlawumbe ke makhe sizame ngento ethi qala kuthethwa ngantoni na xa kuthethwa nge-unfair labor practice.
Yazi isiqalo sethu siqala ba isuka phi.
Kuthiwa sibahle nto wabili. Ke nansi ke le camera iphinde ndizama. Hayi nibona imahluko. Jonga iphinde ngokuya ngathi yandithi nje. Kosivuvu egqaberha. Well, masiye.
Siye sithanda uyiqala ngoba isuka phi le nto kuthiwa i-unlabor practice. Sidila apha with
unfair labor
relation. Yes, sidila with the unfair labor practice, ne? But where do we get now what is unfair labor practice? Sifumana kwi Labor Relations Act yethu, ne?
Labor Relations Act.
Yes.
So kwi act that governs
yes.
Mcimbi.
Basically yiyo yonke imicimbi edibene ne-labor.
Nokusebenza.
Yes.
Okay.
So i-definition yakhona ndizanika straight from the act.
Okay.
So that we understand it and then we'll break it down as we go.
Sure.
Right? So kuthiwa i-unfair labor practice is any unfair act or mission that arises between an employer and employee involving, now it's 4 things: unfair conduct by the employer relating to promotion, demotion, probation, ne? Or trainings of an employee, or relating to provision of benefits to an employee. Ne?
Sure.
Lena does not include disputes about dismissals and relating and information relating to probation period.
Okay.
As our reasons. That's number 1. Then number 2, unfair suspension of an employee or any unfair disciplinary action short of a dismissal in respect of an employee. Ne?
Okay.
So everything that is ingati suspension, but it's not an actual dismissal yet.
Okay.
Ne? Then the third one is failure or refusal by an employer to reinstate, re-employ a former employee in terms of an agreement. Ne? Then the last one is an occupational detriment other than dismissal in contravention of the Protected Disclosure Act, on account of the employee having made a protected disclosure defined in this act. So I feel like is phezulu ziya understanding kakhulu, but number 4 starting with occupational detriment. So occupational detriment, it just means izakwenza uncomfortable. So you make this disclosure wena ukuthi masiqale a protected disclosure so that I'm able to explain what occupational detriment is. A protected disclosure is information that you may have of something eyenzekayo kwicompany yakho, that you, if uyichazile, it might have led to a dismissal yakho. So it's like almost whistleblowing per se.
Okay.
So this would include mhlambi if you know there's a crime happening apha kwicompany and you uchaze londo, you can't now get dismissed when for that. You are protected by the act.
Okay.
You can disclose that information. I just want to have ezinye izinto that are covered in terms of the act as protected disclosures. So as I said, if there's a crime happening and you are aware, whether it's
then you
committed or it is in the process or it was or is likely to be committed,
Okay.
you can report that as long as you have that information. If you know, this is both pertaining to employer, it could be the employer committing the crime or an employee.
Okay.
As long as you know within the company.
Okay.
Yeah? That's number one. And then if a person fails or is failing to comply with illegal obligations zapha company, if you also know of a miscarriage of justice happening within the company, or if mhlambi there's within the environment ye company kukhona bayayidisturb man, a miscarriage of justice per se, then naloyo is protected, and then unfair discrimination, of course. Then those are the things that you protected from. Now, when you make those disclosures, it can't now come back to bite you. That's basically what la occupational detriment means. But just because you've made...
awuzenza clever lokho wena. Samfumana uripote lento ubefike kunje kule company, then sambamba phamncinci khona
ezazinto zoba noba akuthethwanga uzibone ba uyangcungcutheka within the company, uyabona, okanye ufumanise ba you now have been demoted or you getting harassed, you getting intimidated, all of those things. Okanye now that kuthiwa uzenza clever sizayibamba promotion yakhe, you know you're the best, you know that there was this promotion in the pipelines. Okay. So that's what those terms mean. Occupation
Sure.
So remember, guess this Lhoza bentezi for izinto. We also need to break down promotion. What do I mean when I say unfair conduct relating to by an employer relating to promotion? We need to understand that when we talk about promotion, it does not only mean you're not getting promoted because you're a female. It's not just dealing with it being discriminatory. There are other aspects of yes.
But okay, undiya qualify na ngokweye mhlawumbi nangepolicy zomsebenzi ndingayifumana nalomlentsika le promotion kuba ndiyayimitha lena nesikolo siyandivumela nayo yonke into, then ke ndiqonda uba hayi ke yonke lento ndiyayifumana, but because mhlawumbi ke ngoku I'm a female mhlawumbi ndinganikwa, then so, that's it.
Zikhona nezanto sisilhoza ndifike usisilhoza ene-show yakhe, uyaqonda, ndifike mna ndimtsha fresh from school. Lhoza has been doing this for so many years. Ufike city company policy uba to get mhlambi to station manager funeke ube ufunde into ethile so many years of experience in ndifike mna kuba ndiqhafuqhafu ukuthi hayi man, you know, but when you look at the job spec uyabona ba I don't qualify. Experience masithi mhlambi 10 years experience in radio. Fresh from school. Mhlambi I was on the radio for
campus
2
radio.
years. We understand. So you look at that to say, no, but there's a spec for this job and the person Lona Nimtatile does not meet the requirements of the spec. So what is the point of having a spec? This is what we want. I'm not saying that will always justify Indo, but there are certain things that they put with job specs specifically for a role. We understand. And then there's just the whole thing you get overlooked for no real reason. You qualify academically, you qualify in terms of credentials. But what is it? And nobody can explain to you hi man, can be wrong place, wrong time, or whatever they want, whatever reason they give you that you feel is unsatisfactory.
Then
yes. But when you claiming this, you have to prove
Bendizawuza apho ba ndizabe ndisuse kuthiwa Lhoza omdala utshele kuyapenshini ereyidweni suka kulomboko abantwana abancinci abafikayo banika i-chance kwatsha kwacima benqoma jonga nti good mna and ndandisebenze apha esi sitishi sise-IDZ.
Uyayibona loo nto? So you now have to prove.
And ke ngoku ndizabe ndingenayo izinto endizifundileyo ngoku but nenqoma
Kaloku, if you're saying that, you must prove the allegation that I wasn't promoted because of, we understand, you need to prove it. But when you're proving it, if they give you satisfactory reasons as to why not, then that should suffice. But if they can't give you reasons, then we would now say, okay, because if you can confidently justify and substantiate why, we understand. But if awukwazi, then we are now going to say, okay, then it means why didn't you just promote lo mntu advertise? We understand. So it becomes that whole process. This is the situation sithini.
Nzima umcimbi ke wabasebenzi bungaba yaqala banathi enkqubeni siyakwamkela 7:25 kwi-social crossover with me uLhoza Jembe sincokola naye ke uBongwe Bhalintulo Bongwekazi Bhalintule osuka pha kwaThabo Mantyi attendance namhlanje ke sibabeke ecaleni maintenance nazo zonke ezinye ezisinxapisayo ke sithethe nge-unfair labor practice siza ke sive ke zeziphi ezinye izinto sizijonge sawuqonda umcimbi we-act wona kodwa ke ithini
naphaya ku-demotion we need to understand what a demotion means. It doesn't just mean kuthiwe hayi khawusuke kule role iya kwenye. It's important that there's a reduction in your remuneration even as responsibilities ubuzenza funeke ubone hayi mani into ethile benikade ndiyenza ndisayenzi ngoku and even i-status sakho I guess it's
Frizzle.
No, I don't know. Even as a status sakho, so status as in like if you are now a manager, we are kind of there's an aura that comes with being a manager. We are born not necessarily that you always shouting but there's an authority that comes with being in a management position.
Udemote uphinde uhlale kwalapha and abantu bukade ngokunalo bumphethe iphinde iba.
But it's also important to understand that there's gonna be, just because umsebenzi wakho, there are times where umsebenzi uyachinja kancinci. So mhlambi specs sakho sichinje. Not necessarily, it does not necessarily mean it's a demotion.
Okay.
It also, remember, companies move, flow, and grow. So
pandemic,
so when it's those adjustments and all of those, you need to understand that it's not, it might not necessarily be a demotion. And it's also important to understand that there are times where demotion does not fall under an unfair labor practice.
Okay.
For example, if umhlambi kuthiwe, let's take here KNR, for example, kuthiwe, you know what, we're retrenching, but because bekufanele siya retrench actually, but asifuna retrench. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to create money. Ukuthi singa retrench, so to keep abantu, retain the staff that we have. So what we're gonna do is kukhona bantu that we're going to cut remuneration and sort of demote so that we keep the company going as is.
Okay.
So in a process like that, then it wouldn't be an unfair labor practice. Of course, as I'm saying, would be communicated. You know?
Okay.
So there would be that. Obviously, if umhlambi it's a disciplinary, there was the whole process of a disciplinary was followed, and it's punishment for you for low misdemeanor yako. You also would have been aware that there's a possibility of as was in. So in those instances, it wouldn't fall part of being an unfair labor practice, because you would understand. And as I'm saying, if it's in terms of a disciplinary, the right process has to be followed.
Sure.
So if now it's not followed, then it crosses over to being an unfair labor practice.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Okay. Before sidlule apho sizokwazi ukukhawuleza sishwankathele kadarura morning kadarura ngathi yateketisa kadarura nzena kodwa cute man nelagama Vuvuma Mdlane uthi nakumbuzo to be removed from your post you are appointed to a non-existing post. If you resist going to Lee, the non-existing one, not given work to do, does it fall under unfair labor practice? And how do you handle that?
But my issue is that non-existing. How are you moving to a post that's not existing? Number one.
Because I'm creating a post man at Tintin, but Kofika Paya, oh no, no,
remember, Kaloko, when you're being moved, there's gotta be a contract stipulating what was
moving
what are you gonna do? Post. Sure. Is it still the same post that you know what, Sizamu creator, something else? Like what is it? Le post yako? Is it still same level? Is it moving you up? We understand. So all of those, the resistance I'm understanding from your side would be because you don't understand what it is.
Why move?
What are you going to do?
Is it same level? Just they're just getting rid of you.
So that, for me, the issue would be trying to understand about what is happening. You understand, because your company policy should, the fact that you're saying Nancy position this is non-existent tells me that there's documents, contracts, and stipulating what umdu does. So ngoku confusion yako is here. There's nothing.
Yeah.
I don't give advice, but I would say have a discussion.
In place. Then because of so it's only no HR to
understand
explain about why two kuzawuthi kulebe kuyo kuzakwenzeka kanjani then yonke loo nto ibekwe apha then ke uyokwazi ujonga uba yashaywa apha okanye hayi shem yazi in fact.
And also Kaloko, remember when there are these talks, it's not supposed to be forced. It's a discussion. You are given that thing. You're about, okay, this is what we are thinking. We understand. So it's either a thought process or they are considering you. That's how I would understand it to be.
Okay. All right. Se masinansi ke msibheke evenkileni silungise ngapha mntanomncinci yaqhawuka. Silungise ngapha ivenkile kwenza into yobana sizokumkhulula ndicima mhlawumbi ke si-understandile uba yintoni i-unfair labor practice. Yile nyanga ke sikuyo ke ngoku ye-disability month. But before sibheke evenkileni andimazi noba unoqatha okanye kwenzeka ntoni uba bendifuna silungise ngapha Bongwe.
Also, it's important to understand that the unfair labor practice, the unfair discrimination in the workplace, so how they are dealt with are separate.
Discrimination.
Yes, the unfair labor practice.
I'm sure there's a thin line.
Yes, no, there are times where it's a thin line. Remember the first example we did with a promotion where you're not getting promoted because you're female. That falls in both. So it will depend on how you now present it. Where will it fall? Because the determination, the importance of knowing what it is it deals with where the forum that you're going to go to.
Okay.
Cannot forget a forum. Because if it's unfair discrimination, it will go to the labor court. But if it's unfair labor practice, it will be arbitrated. It can either
CCMA.
be CCMA or a bargaining council. Ne? Depending, a bargaining council is basically like I know engineers have it, where it's like trade unions coming together, basically. Yes, where they deal with disciplinary issues.
Ne-rate izawunyuka ngayo imali izawuxoxwa phaa i-bargaining council. Let's pay the bills. Sizoyivala naku umbuzo kaZola ndiyawubona phaa, but masilungise kweli cala.
Yeah. I think.
That's fine. Aphoxa's laptop. KNR, disability awareness. Nakumbuzo sizoyivala ke ngoku simkhulule. What is the extent of consultation in a directive? Does your opinion matters?
Look, your opinion should always matter, because remember, we are people, ne? And so that's what we work with. We communicate as people. For a relationship, an employee-employer relationship is, employee-employer should have a relationship. And the key to any relationship is communication. But you have to understand that in that communication, there are channels that you follow.
Okay.
So it's important to have small discussions, no HR, not talking like before, because no, this is how it should happen. But each company does things differently according to Bona. So it's always important to touch base with the HR company yako to find out, okay, so how do I go about even small things, because Abandu always think of going to HR when a problem is big, you know? So all of these questions you can ask HR. I can't say isebenza njani because I'm not in that company. So you would have to speak to your HR to find out from them, okay, how does it work in your company? Because remember, as much as is Ateta about unfair labor practice in when we go to court or we're going to arbitrate, you need to understand that the company will come and explain their side, and they will most probably bring the company policies with them. You know, so it's important before you go this route to understand company policies where nakala. And if you don't understand them, HR should be willing to explain them to you, and there must be trainings to get you nizazi, and they should be available on the intranet, ye company. If not on the intranet, somewhere in the company, you should be able to access the company policies. And again, HR is very important in this regard. So now if nekungabi ngumuntu owaziwa ba oko uyosayina contract HR kwazi njalo nje ba oko usayina contract bayayazi igama nefani ba ubuso ngubani. No, you must be able to have that relationship, because that is the person oqala kuye whenever there's a problem, or if you want to understand something about the company.
Thank you, Bongwe. Thank you, Bongwe. Thank you, Bongwe. Kwasikakhulu ke kubongwe masikhangele ke siyamkhupha ngoku fumana Bongwe next week Thursday kwakhona thetha ngomnye umcimbi ke obalulekileyo nawo zonke dikane sithi ngomso baphulaphula sawuphuma ke ngoku ngoba salungiselela ba olunye indwendwe lethu 8:10 coming up kwi last hour a social crossover sabe sinaye ke uMr Nodada xa ephuma uMr Nodada nge 20:00 sabe sifumana ke olunye udliwanondlebe sakhaleza nalo sithi qhuqhuqhu sabe sithetha nge-aquaculture, oceans economy, zonke izinto ezikhomshayo, you know, famisha ngenhlanzi njalo thandile inqomamo leli bethu nani. So siyaphuma ke ngapha sawuphinda sibuye shortly, right? Silapha poskoyo. Thank you, Bongwe.